Okay, so our last presentation of the day, I hope you've enjoyed it so far. So I'd just like to introduce Amy Bloom, representing the Chartered Institute of Waste Management. So Amy is an experienced technical plant engineer at Suez, social value and sustainability lead for the technical team, and an ambassador of CIWM's early career presidential team. Her work predominantly focuses on building future skills, resilience to support the development of the circular economy and the achievement of climate targets. She actively advocates for green skills and development and showcasing opportunities within the waste management industry, and she's the Young Director for Sustainability West Midlands, a non-profit organisation dedicated to create a more sustainable, fair and green region. In recognition of her contributions, she's been named an under 35s status holder by letsrecycle.com. I'll hand over to Amy.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, thanks for coming back to the last session of the day. I know you've had a lot of really great talks, but it's nice to see some faces in the audience. No? That one. So I'm going to just talk to you about sustainability in the waste management sector. And I've got a couple of hats on today. I know you've been spoken to by ICME, so I'm a member of the ICME, but also I am, like I said, an early careers ambassador for CIWM, and I'll get onto them a bit later. But before we start, old school, what does waste management mean to you guys? What is the first word that comes into your head when you think of waste management? Shout them out. Yeah. Rubbish, yeah. Toilets. That's a nicer way of saying what everyone else was thinking. Yeah. Anyone else? Cost saving. I love that. Anyone else? Recycling. Okay, you definitely get. If I had a prize, if I had Man City tickets, you could have them, but unfortunately I don't. So yeah, we've got some of these. I did a straw poll, and these are the words that came up. A few of them have come up from what you said. Toilets, bin, idiots. The person who said that word is actually a very good friend of mine, so I don't know whether to take that personally or not. Energy from waste, tips, waste crime, low wages, but it's also heavily regulated. It's also part of the circular economy. There's so much value in what we throw away, and we can recover precious resources of value from it. Recycling is part of it, definitely, but it's not the only part. So, has anyone opened a dictionary recently? How does waste get defined? It's okay, this isn't a test. So waste is defined as unwanted matter or material of any type, especially what is left after useful substances or parts have been removed. Would you agree with that? Yeah? Thinking back, what was the last thing you threw in a bin, Rosie? Tea bags, yeah, okay, rubbish, yeah, definitely. Once someone said hopes and dreams, and I was like, oh, it's deeper than I was expecting, but there we are. But what about who here drinks coffee? Who drinks tea? I certainly am mildly addicted. I need it. Or what about caffeine? To the decaffeinated tea industry, caffeine is a massive waste product. But to pharmaceutical companies, to fizzy drinks manufacturers, caffeine is one of their ingredients. They need it to make their products be what we like, be what we need. But is it a case of waste is something that we don't think about because we don't see it? Has anyone seen this picture before? No. So, quite obvious what it is, or maybe not. That is one of the world's largest landfills in the Atacama Desert, taken from space. And that is filled by quite a significant portion with clothes from the Western markets. And they know they're in Western markets because Simon, I can't remember his name now, there's been some really good documentaries on this area, and you can go to this place, and because of the dryness, because of the temperature, none of the materials are really breaking down. So you can see the clothing labels that are still on there. A lot of these clothes also have got tags in them where they've not even been managed to be sold. So you're thinking about all of the materials that went into making that, all of the chemicals and the dyes, and they've ended up in the landfill. Out of mind, is it out of sight? Is it out? So, with that in mind, touching on the point of why is waste management important? Well, the world's economy is, as of 2024, 7% circular. Now, when I talk about circular, I'm thinking about what I've just said about caffeine, how one industry's waste product, byproduct, is an input for another sector. It's what someone else needs. And that's on a larger scale. At the moment, it's only 7% globally circular, but even if we all switched to renewable energy tomorrow, 50% of our greenhouse gas emissions globally come from how we utilise resources and extract resources. Some of you are nodding, so I assume you've heard this fact and figure before. But how are we going to reduce that without waste management? How are we going to capture those materials if we don't have something in place to keep those resources in circulation and in use? Because once it gets to here, it's too late. So what does waste management look like in the UK? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of text on there, and I'm not expecting you to read it, but it's changing, and it's changing fast. I imagine from a lot of the institutes that have spoken today, they will have talked about a rapid rate of change that's going on technically, but across the world really at the moment. And it's very, very similar in the waste management sector in the UK. So the biggest single change, I'm going back a bit now, and I'm not going to ask when you guys were born, because I'll probably feel very old. But in 1996, if you were alive then, it was the introduction of the landfill tax in the UK. And there are, a couple of thought processes, but this is seen to be the singular biggest change to the waste management sector. Over the next couple of years, so from 1996 to 1999, we see landfill become economically not viable for companies. And we go from the shift of about 11% recycling rate in 2001 to about 45% in 2022-2023. And it also means local authorities, which I'm sure if you've opened a newspaper or got the news app on your phone, budgets are all stretched at the moment. And sending it to landfill, which is what they used to do a lot of, is very expensive. And they've been able to divert 22 million tonnes from 2001, 2002, to about 1.2 million tonnes in 22-23. So that's the landfill tax, and that's the changes we've seen. I know there are other industries, it's not just about local authorities, but we've got a lot of legislation coming in. And if you're thinking as an engineer, legislation, God, I'm so glad I never did law or anything like that. It's not my cup of tea. To achieve these targets and being able to provide the processes that are going to allow these things to happen, there has to be engineers behind the scene creating the processes, creating the industries, and creating the products. So, for example, we're talking about, in this year alone, we've got simpler recycling legislation. So the goal of that is to ensure that what we recycle in one place is very clearly what we're going to recycle in another. How many times have you been to a different area of the country and someone's got 8 bins, one of each colour of the rainbow and then one else, and then you go home and you're like, I don't know what bin does a cup go in? It's a very good question, and one I get a lot. So the simpler recycling is all about making that standardised. But if you think about it, when your bins gets collected, where does that go? How does it get sorted? What then happens to that material? You've got engineers, technicians at every single stage of that process that allow us to capture the material, keep it in circulation, make the economy more circular. Then in 2026 and 2028, another 2 big drivers coming in. We've got the circular economy strategy that's going through the motions at the moment with the local governments, but they've got something else on their minds if you've been reading the news recently. And also we've got the expansion of ETS, so that's the emissions trading scheme into the UK waste sector incineration. Now, those in itself, I work at the moment primarily in incineration support, or energy from waste support, and I can confidently say that is changing my job almost weekly, the ETS information. My projects are changing. We have to record better data. You would not believe, or maybe you would believe, just how powerful data can be if it's the right data in the right format and using it in a way that engages with your audience. And we need that because there's a huge financial implication if we don't record what we are emitting. And finally, in 2027, and I could have listed a lot more than the 5 I've got up here, we've got DRS legislation coming in the UK. If you've ever been, this is a deposit return scheme, if you've ever been in Europe, it's very common in like Germany. It's if you buy a product, the material that the packaging the product comes in has an intrinsic value to it. You can take it back to a machine and you get a coupon for it. Now, I've just chosen those as a taste to say why things are changing, because they are changing, and these will all be touched, even if you don't think about it, even if you decide after this presentation, gosh, I never want to hear about waste management again in the UK, that's fine, I won't take it personally, but these are all things that are going to impact your day-to-day lives. And that is what sustainability and waste management is so interesting to me. So my journey, I will hold my hands up. I did not dream of working as an engineer in waste management. I don't trust anybody who says they've had a lifelong dream to work in waste management. I was in my last year of uni at Aston University, and I was pretty desperate for a job because I was focusing on all the other million things you do at university, and I suddenly thought, oh God, I need some money because I want to go on holiday after this. It's been pretty stressful. So I ended up going to a Women in Engineering event and happened to bump into someone who said she was hiring for a job in waste management. All I knew in my head was I like technical stuff, I like working with people, and I wanted to do something with an environmental focus to it. And my money situation meant that I couldn't afford to be that choosy. So I applied for the job, and lo and behold, I got it. But it wasn't a technical role. It wasn't an engineering role. It was in contract management. But I thought, oh, this company looks great. I've got my foot in the door. And more importantly, I can afford to go to Copenhagen this year. Great. So I graduated in 2018, and I started out in key account management and supporting hazardous waste. Hazardous waste is not nuclear waste. It is basically anything else that is not like packaging. Like if it's got oil on a rag, that class is hazardous waste. It depends what it's got in it, but it's not nuclear waste. I get that question quite a lot. And I spent about 18 months in key account management, And I look back on that time now, I'm so, so grateful that I did, because it enabled me, A, to make bigger networks than a lot of my colleagues who've just stayed in focused on the engineering side. It enabled me to see a wider spectrum of what waste management is. It's not just incineration, it's not just bins, it's not just toilets. It's a lot of things. It's one of the sectors that I find is you can't go through life and avoid it. Like, it touches every area of your life, and when it stops working, like a lot of things, gosh, you hear about it. Moving on from my key account management time, I then moved into operational support with on an anaerobic digestion plant and an energy from waste gasifier down in Surrey. That was sort of after 18 months of a break from engineering. I was like, oh, didn't know if I was going to have the brain to get back into it. I've had quite a nice time in key account management. I've done a lot of meetings, got to go to the Yorkshire Tea Factory, got a free bag of Yorkshire tea. If anyone knows me, they know how much I love Yorkshire Gold. Oh my God, living my best life. But I thought, getting a bit twitchy. I want to get back into the numbers. So I thought I'd go to a very, very smelly anaerobic digestion plant and help it through commissioning. So I did that for 18 months. And from that, I've then become a technical plant engineer. So at the moment, my focus is incineration, it's energy from waste. And what we're seeing, and I talked about the circular economy strategy, is the emergence of a push towards circular economy thinking. That's just me at the bottom there, standing next to a turbine exhaust. I would say looking fabulous, but there we are. High vis for you. So what does a day-to-day look like for me? So going from non-technical back into technical, it's so many things. So we've got on the top left there, we've got a lot of technical training. That's confined space training equipment. We do have to go into boilers. Boilers are central to power generation, but as we incinerate waste and recover as much energy as we can from it, we create steam. When we come offline to do cleaning, we need to go in. So that's the top left, and that's what I say to people. What I love about my job is I'm not behind a desk all day. I love getting out on site. I love putting my PPE on and getting dirty, basically. On the top right, that's what a fire line looks like on one of our incineration plants, energy from waste plants, sorry. There is a dark art to maintaining fire on a grate based on waste, and I hold up my hands up to all the operational guys who managed to do it. But I do a lot of education, so yes, there is an element of we take waste that was going to landfill, we generate more value from it. There's a huge social value side as well to my job. Not only do we do educational visits, I do some public speaking. I think this is me when I was getting my award. And we also have the Renew Hub. This is down here in the bottom right. Now, if any of you, I'm guessing you all live in Manchester or are local to know the area, we have something Suez do called the Renew Hub, based in Trafford Park. You can't visit it, but you can look at the eBay store, and it's given second life to a lot of amazing things that you don't know you need, but you definitely need them in your life. The amount of furniture I have encouraged people to buy off there is incredible. So have a look at their eBay store. But what the hub is central to is showing that there is a lot of value in what people throw away. Financial, yes, but I personally would never buy a new bike again. The amount that get donated or get thrown away, and the financial value might be lower in its second life, but they still function, they still work, and that's kind of in crux what we're talking about. So the other hat I wear, apart from my Suez day-to-day role, is I'm an ambassador in the Early Careers Presidential Team for CIWM. There's one president, that's Charlotte there with the ginger curly hair. but there's 12 of us all over the country, and we cover all sorts of employment areas in waste management. It's not just engineering, there's a lot of consultancy for process design. We've got a lot of representation from local authorities, universities and research facilities. There are a lot of up-and-coming processes that will be coming into the market over the next few years, whether it's recovering value from tyres so they're not going off to landfill because they're very difficult to manage at the moment, or a plastic that could be degraded on an industrial scale, not just at a lab bench. So if you are looking or interested in waste management, I'd say come and have a look. Membership is free for students. And the early careers team, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I think we're a pretty lovely bunch. And if you've got any questions, one of us is always happy to answer them. It's not just for young people, graduates either. It's like anyone in the early careers part of their careers. So under 10 years, you're very welcome to come and connect with us. That's the CIWM slogan. Together we stand for a world beyond waste. So, my main takeaways. You want to forget the last 25 minutes of what I've been talking about, you can do, but I would say the three things that I would recommend to anybody if you're a recent graduate, if maybe you're a student and soon you're thinking about your next career steps, or maybe you're thinking of a career change. It might be scary, but be curious. If I hadn't just gone for that job in Suez, even though it wasn't technically an engineering role, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I find my job, I find my career. I honestly did not think I would be this person standing up here talking about waste management to anybody. So be curious. You don't know what you don't know, but the more you learn, the more you realise how much there is out there to learn. Secondly, plans are made to be changed. I've switched from technical, non-technical careers. I ended up taking a 3-month sabbatical, going to France for 3 months and ate my body weight in cheese. Don't think that one path is it. You know, maybe you give something a go and it's not what you thought it would be. It's okay to change. In fact, it takes courage to change rather than just keep going for something that's not suiting you. And finally, maybe it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but consider resource management, consider waste management as a career option. What someone said to me on my first day is, once you get into the sector, you're never probably going to leave it, and I can vouch for that. It's fascinating. It's not the most glamorous, but there will always be end products, there will always be resources coming off a process, so it's one of the most stable careers in that aspect. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions.
So our first question is, what advice would you give someone looking for a mentor? Are there any specific qualities that they should look out for?
Well, that's a very interesting question because mentors come in all different shapes and sizes. The best thing I could say is, if you're looking for a mentor, think about where you want to be and find someone who's already been there. And they're probably the best person that you could actually seek advice from. But also bear in mind, it's got to be someone that you trust, that you believe will give you the right advice, and someone you can build a relationship with, because mentoring, like I say, isn't a fast-track process like coaching could be. Mentoring tends to take 12 months, could be 5 years. My mentor, I'm still in touch with him now. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago before I came to this event. I've known him for 40 years. So that's the best advice I could give you myself personally.
Any other feedback?
I would say it's okay to try a mentor and it not work for you. It's like any other relationship. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and that's all right. One of the biggest recommendations I could give you is, if you are looking for a mentor, be humble, because it is a two-way relationship. You will end up learning a lot about yourself that maybe at the start you might feel a bit uncomfortable with, but it will help you develop so much more. My mentor, for example, exactly the same as Lionel, I'm still in contact with him. He helped me get my chartership, and there were some conversations that were trickier than others, but that's how you grow.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that we have is, specific to waste management. We talked earlier around perception of industries and perceptions of technology. What do you think the waste management industry could do to kind of alleviate some of the preconceived notions around, it's similar to some of those words that you had up earlier, about it being smelly. It's not really a job, for example, a woman might want to do, or, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. What do you think, as an industry, can be done to try and alleviate some of those conceptions?
Well, how long do you have? If I'm completely honest, we, as a sector, like I said towards the end, we are changing, and the makeup of our industry, like the workers in it, are changing as well. So I work with a lot of guys who've been there for about 40 years, and now they're starting to retire. We're sort of getting a new wave of people in. I think part of being in the early careers ambassador team, that is one of those things. We're all going out there into the community. We're coming to events like this. We're challenging notions of what waste management, resource management looks like. There is a whole universe behind what you put in a bin. That's, for us, that's the start. If you're curious, we do tours. Loads of the waste management companies do tours, free tours of their facilities if you want to understand the process. I think it's a case of educating the public, but also holding our hands up as a sector. Things have gone wrong in the past, or we've done things that ethically maybe we shouldn't have done. And people that quite rightly are holding us to account now. It's a case of accepting our mistakes or things we've done and putting, not a shiny new image out, but putting the right image out. Blue Planet 2, I don't know if any of you have watched it, changed our sector overnight. The power of public perception and public influence, especially on the plastics in the ocean, created change that no one saw coming. But quite rightly so, because it kicked us all, up the bum, not just in the UK, but globally. You see the number of charities after that have exploded with the impact on health with public perception of waste. So I think there's a lot of things that, as a sector we could do, but it's easier to change things from the inside, right?
So another question for Amy. What are some recommendations you can make for things we can do at home that will help benefit the waste management industry?
Gosh, guys. Where do I start? Well, I would say, firstly, there's something called the waste management hierarchy, where it is all about eliminating waste before you use it. So I would say before you even make waste, question the services you're using, the products you're using, and say, do I need it? Is there a way that I can get this without being put in this packaging? Something like that. Keep educating yourself. If you are really interested in this, and it sounds like a couple of you are, educate yourself and have those conversations with your nearest and dearest. I go to parties sometimes, and one of the questions I get is, what bin can my coffee cup go into? And I wonder what life is like before people talk to me about coffee cups, to be honest. So education, questioning whether you need it, putting things in the right bin. Wish cycling is really detrimental to the recycling process. I know a lot of people put things in the recycling bin because they're like, oh, if I put it in there, it will get recycled. It won't. It will just cause contamination down the line and get rejected, and that causes bigger headaches elsewhere. So I'd say don't be tempted to wish cycle, but also be kind on yourself. We are all trying to live in a world, we cap at the 2-degree world, right? People make errors, we're all learning. And don't be too hard on yourself, because the fact that you're even questioning that you want to make a change is so powerful, because there are a lot of people out there who don't know that they want to make a change, who aren't fussed about it.
Thank you. So another question, open to the panel. I'll start off with you, Ben. So when we're talking about careers and accessibility to engineering, even earlier in the day we talked about the roles are there, but there could be some individuals who feel like, as opposed to certain roles such as medicine, where a doctor would go to university and then be guaranteed a job after studying, it's not necessarily the case for engineers. There are some engineers who have studied but are struggling to get jobs, whether they be UK nationals or even international individuals. So what do you think employers and even government could do to make access more accessible for people? I'll start off with you, Ben.
I think careers services are really important. I went to the University of Manchester and they were really helpful in it. I think interviewing and the way you approach job applications is a skill. It's a talent in itself, and I think practice makes perfect. So applying for lots of stuff and trying as many as you can, and even if you fail, it's still a good experience. And I think the mentoring is really important as well, because if someone's already been through that journey and has got that experience and learned that skill, how to interview well and approach those jobs, and that's really key. And then just awareness as well, so try and get to as many events like this where you can meet people from different sectors, and careers days, and anything where you're putting yourself out there, meeting new people and building your network is really important as well for finding jobs.
Yeah, I echo exactly what Ben said, but you have to put yourself out there, and we're all individuals and we all have different personalities. Some of us introverts, some of us extroverts, but we all fit in somewhere. You just have to put yourself in the right place, and I know that's going to be difficult, but the more you are confident to go out and do that, the easier it becomes over time. So just keep doing and keep doing and keep doing. There's no such thing as failure. It just means that didn't happen when you went to choose that option. It's the next thing that's going to happen.
I'd say, like I said at the end of my presentation, don't be scared to try. Sometimes I think there's a lot of pressure when you come out of university that you get the perfect job with worldwide travel and all your expenses and all the glamour. Sometimes it's just worth shooting your shot, getting a job, and it worked out for me, and I know it's worked out for a lot of other people. Do not compare yourself to your best friend or the person on your course who annoys you. Everyone's path is different, and everyone gets there in their own time.
Thank you so much. So our next question is for Ben, and it's about, you mentioned work experiences with GCSE and A-level students. Have you got any specific techniques or approaches to really engage them and excite them about engineering?
So I think I talked about it a bit. We have one task which I suppose I'll talk about in a bit more detail for the work experience. So as a process engineer, one of the big things we do is draw diagrams of the process itself and all of the key elements, and it usually starts as a block flow diagram and builds up to a process instrumentation diagram, pipe instrumentation diagram, and what we have is there's a lot of steps along the way where we're trying to teach them new symbols, and anyone who's looked at electrical drawings at GCSE maybe, we're trying to teach them that, and it's a completely new concept to them. So what we do is we start off by making it a bit of a game, a bit of fun. We say, how would you make a hot chocolate? What are the steps of making hot chocolate? Something really basic. We don't offer them hot chocolate at the end, unfortunately. But and then we build that up over time. So then once they've learned the skill of something they do understand, we can start applying it at a level to something real for Sellafield. And that's sort of how we do it, and it's the same throughout the session really. So it's starting off with something they do understand at a small level, basic concepts, and then slowly starting to add in things and challenge them. So we give them a bit of requirements, and then we talk about like feed specification and a bit more complicated stuff that we would talk about on projects. And by the end of it, they've got it really, they're able to do it. Some of the stuff they come out with is quite impressive, really, after a day and a half. So yeah, that's the kind of approach we have. And we also have the practicals as well, which kind of support it. Again, we talked about like the way we like to learn, and everyone's different. And I think, yeah, I'm quite hands-on as well. I like to do something practical to sort of reinforce the concept. So we have, we get to draw a process flow diagram for like a phase separation, and then they have a go of separating out a mixture of solids, liquids, based off the block flow diagram, process flow diagram that they've drawn. So yeah, that's really good to see.
I really do admire that, you know, process of trying to simplify, you know, solutions to something that's, you know, recognisable by people who are not in the industry. You know, it's a great approach, and it definitely helped me as I was getting set up, you know, in my engineering career. So a question for everyone, really. So I assume most of you have been, or all of you have been mentored, at least at some point in your life. What would you say for somebody who's looking for a mentor? What should they be looking out for? What are the signs of a good mentor? You know, as you mentioned, Lionel, you know, everybody has different personalities, whether they're extroverted or introverted. But what would you say are some kind of fundamentals that people should kind of keep an eye out for someone who is able to support them? I'll start with you, Amy.
Thanks. For me, you won't know until you sit down with them on that first session and have that conversation. I think you can read a blurb about somebody on a website. It's only when you sit down and have, you know, interactions that you could get a feel whether they may be right or wrong for you. A couple of red flags I have is someone who talks over you a lot. That's not what mentoring is. And I reflect at the end what I've sort of what we've talked about, or what I've developed in that session. And after that, if I don't feel like I'm getting value from it, then I think, is this person the right one for me?
I'll let you go first, then I'll add on. I think I've got something you said resonated with me quite well about having someone outside of your sector, somebody who's not that line manager, but I'll mention after you.
Thanks, Ben. I'm going to say it for you then. The one key thing is that looking for someone who's willing to sacrifice and serve your needs as opposed to them wanting to tell you what to do. I remember the time when Lee actually approached me as a 16-year-old, and he didn't specifically say outright what it was that attracted him to me. But what I could see is that he was willing to tell me about himself and wanted me to be part of what he was doing. And he invited me over to his old school because we were having a school football match. And even though he'd left, he had a team that he was playing for, and they were going to play the school team. And he said, Lionel, I want you to come along. My mum and dad are going to be there. I want you to meet them. So he was introducing me into his life, not just work, but outside of work.
Yeah, so sort of what I was alluding to there was something I have mentors at work, so I have an ICME mentor who's sort of looking after my career from a chartership perspective, who's encouraging me and looking for experiences that develop me in that way. And then I have a really good line manager who's also really supportive and pushing me in that direction, so professionally. But I think what you said about having someone who's even more like unbiased and removed, that can look at your career like quite objectively, sounds like a really good thing. So I actually think that's something I'm going to take on board now and try and maybe find like an additional mentor who's got a different perspective on things, who I don't work for, isn't in my company, and who has a different view. Because I thought, I hadn't really thought of that before, but really good point.
Yeah, so just a bit to add on to that, you know, again, on the topic of mentorship, in this day and age, you know, with social media and, you know, the technology that we have at our disposal, you know, how could people go about finding a mentor if they're not necessarily interested in using the people at their disposal in the workplace? You know, if they do want to have that independence, you know, what resources are available to people to find mentorship? So.
I would add to that. would never get mentored by my line manager, personally. That would just be a conflict of interest in my mind. So I'm really interested to hear other opinions. So CIWM, if you become a member of a lot of professional organisations, they have options to get mentored. So at CIWM, for example, I know there is one. I know there's one at ICME as well. And also, a mentor doesn't have to be something official. It can be a coach. It could be someone that you look up to. I think Lionel said it best. It needs to be someone who's willing to sacrifice, because it is an emotional, it is a time drain basically for them as well.
Yeah, just sort of reiterate what you said there. A lot of the institutes offer routes to find mentors and mentorship schemes, so that's probably the best place to start from my perspective.
I'll just share another example of what happened for me personally. I was working as a senior engineer and I was looking to find an opportunity to go and get promotion to an associate director's position. And I wanted someone who I didn't know, and I thought, who can I speak to? At the same time, I was doing a management course, and the CEO of the institution, the Chartered Management Institute, approached me about joining the mentoring course or just institution that they were setting up. And I just said, would you mind mentoring me? Because I'm about to change my role in industry. And she mentored me for 12 months, preparing me for moving up in my career.
So obviously you've all been new graduates at some point, you might have even changed role. Do you have any specific advice for people entering a new industry or a brand new role?
Okay, yep. I think after you leave university, you might realise how the first shock that you don't actually know that much, and you'll get to your first job and be like, oh my god, what have I just spent 5 years doing? So I would say, firstly, be humble. You can gain so much from the experience of your colleagues. You couldn't learn that at university. Secondly, be prepared to make a lot of mistakes and not take yourself so seriously. Again, that's the only way you're going to learn is through your mistakes. Own them, because you'll look back in 5 years' time and laugh at them, and as long as no one got injured. And I've forgotten the third thing I was going to say, so I'll hand over to you, Ben.
It's kind of similar, I think, when you asked the question, did you feel prepared when you went into the workplace? I think my answer is, I did a placement year at Sellafield while I was at university, and then returning to university afterwards, I had a kind of different perspective on the way that I approached uni, because I've learned so much from being in that environment. So yeah, the main advice I'd say is just learn as much as you can from others, be curious, ask questions. If you don't know, find out, and that's how you develop, I think.
Yeah, it's quite an ironic situation to hear that question being asked today, because I've just transferred in my company from building services into the water industry. As I was saying to Amy, it's wastewater. It's got nothing to do with building services, effectively. So I've had to transition into something that I did not know much about, but I thought I did. So where I'm at right now is thinking, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes here because I'm doing it again. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So now I'm there, I know I've got something to offer because I've been in the industry for a long time. So when you go into something new, you're there because you're supposed to be there. So don't see yourself as being not able to function. Bring what you've got and do what you can, the best that you can with what you've got, and you'll learn the rest as you go along.
Yeah, it's that point of transferable skills. You know, we actually don't recognise how capable we are until we step into a role. You know, I found it myself. I've changed industry before, and you know, I've come to learn. You know, a pump is a pump. You know, whether it's a small pump or it's a big pump. You know, they're both pumps. They both perform the same way. You know, the skills are there that you have, and they are transferable as you move through your kind of career. What I'd like to do now is just open it up to the room. We can just ask, you know, one or two questions if anyone has anything they'd like to raise. I can come round and hand you the mic. Okay. Oh, of course, you sat right at the back. No, it's fine.
Hello, sorry, I'm right all the way back. Okay, is it good industry to be in waste management? Is there a future in that?
I'm doing the awkward walk now, back down the stairs. We do. I'll come back to you. Second mic, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Is it good in waste management? There's always going to be waste, so pretty secure job market to be in, if I'm honest. I think it's really fascinating because of how much it's changing technically. There's so many developments. I'm always learning. I'm someone, if I get bored, then that's just not me. I'll just find another role or something. So if you're looking to be challenged and to be part of an evolving sector, definitely it's one to consider. There's sort of a transition from calling it waste management into resource management and circular economy thinking at the moment. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, then okay, probably I would say financially it doesn't pay as well as probably the big tech IT companies, but job's a lot more stable, so sometimes you have to balance what you're looking for, really. And what excites you? What drives you to get up in the morning? Just ask yourself that.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything that Amy's just said, but the one key thing that made me transition from building services to water is because there's a lot of waste in water at the moment, and I'm sure if you listen to the news, you will hear it time and time again. So, as Amy said, there's lots of opportunities, and it's not just about the things that you think waste is about, because I know 20 years ago a lot of people didn't want to go and do refuge collections, but people are queuing up for those jobs now, because they are prime jobs out there.
Thank you all for your contributions. It's much appreciated. I hope you all found that very useful. I think that will be the last question. If you have any questions for our panellists afterwards, I don't think they'd mind you trying to come and catch them and ask that question. So please do make use of that. Okay, in terms of what we have left, I think we're ready to close. I mean, how did you find it? What do you think? Good? Okay, I think just in terms of some closing remarks, I found it a thoroughly enjoyable day. Thank you for your sacrifices in terms of coming here today, at your own cost and, contributing to this event. I want to thank the panel as well for helping organising this event. A lot of time goes into it. I mean, some points I took away, and I'm going to take away leaving, here today is, that element of selflessness when we're talking about sustainability. When it comes to mentorship, there's very much that selflessness element. The volunteering opportunities are there. This event wouldn't have been possible if it's not for the volunteers, so do make use of those institutions. I also think, sustainability as a topic can be applied in so many different ways. We've seen in the morning, Kit presenting on the bridge and sustainable design, and then in the afternoon session about sustainability and mentoring. They're both completely different, areas of work, but, sustainable practices can still be applied to both of those areas. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll hand over to Rosie just to close us out. I think that's it from me.
Thank you, Simon, for your key takeaways. Yes, just a very quick run through of thanks to a few people for helping to make this event happen. So thanks to the University of Manchester for providing us with this venue today. It takes a lot of work to try and get the venue out of hours, and they've managed to provide it to us. free of charge, so that we can use our budget wisely to be able to make this event happen. Thank you for all of you for attending today, for being so curious about the different institutions and what they have to offer. And I hope you've had some takeaways and some different perceptions and potentially new career kind of ideas and paths that do come out of this, because that's what we want, is the kind of spark, these new ideas and thinkings and connections from you all. And thanks to all the speakers and the institution representatives that have come here representing roughly about 10 different organisations, institutions today, and kind of sharing both what the institutions are about, but also all the volunteering opportunities, as Simon said, not just for this, but as we've shown, there's volunteer groups around regionally and nationally that put on a lot of events, whether it's social or networking or career style events. So please get in contact with our various presenters today if you'd like to contribute to some of these teams. And also thanks to all the volunteers. We've got a chain organising committee that have put a huge effort behind the scenes into making this happen. We'll try and get a quick picture of all the volunteers at the screen, literally just after this, but can I please get a round of applause for everyone and all that I've thanked here today. And I think the very last thing I want to say was that because of its success of bringing Chain Manchester back, we really look forward to welcoming you back next November for next year's Chain events. I hope that you take away and become advocates for the Chain so that we make next year's event even bigger. So thank you very much. And safe journeys home.